Okay, so welcome to tonight's discussion. We're going to be going over kind of a how to get started in Ancerios topic. We're going to be looking at how to join the RP side of the server, how sheet reviews and the intro RP process works, what is the difference between colonials and natives, what impacts does it have on your nation and how you can work it into the lore. We're going to look at, you've just finished a role play. What do you do now? How to create your own stories and story arcs for the benefit of the group and for yourselves. What are journals and sort of where to put them or how to do them. How you join and get involved with major ongoing stories such as Corona or Mortal Coil, etc. How you generally get the most out of Ancerios. And finally, just sort of general questions that anyone might have. So, first things first, how to join the RP side of the server. Well, it's pretty much a question of, do you want to write with us? And if the answer is yes, excellent. You can come and join the RP side of it. Obviously, if you're new to this server, you have a 2-week waiting period. You get to know us, we get to know you. A lot of people don't like this waiting period, but it is pretty key in our vetting process. I definitely recommend to interact for the 2 weeks that you're here to flesh out your nation concept or whatever concept that you're coming up with in the general developments, talk and RP discussion about potential plots that you're coming up with, and generally mesh and hang out with people on both voice chats and Ancerios chat. Bear in mind that obviously we do kind of watch you in this period and we try to look at how you interact and how well you get on with the community. Some people get on swimmingly and, it's all good. Some people don't or just instantly shit themselves over the 2-week wait period, as was demonstrated several days ago. But yeah, that is pretty much how you join. Once the 2 weeks are up, you get the hopeful role, you can submit your sheet. You do that in required forms, you make a new forum post for it on the required forms forum bit, and the staff will review. Okay? The sheet review process, which slides nicely in, is very simple. Once you've got your basic sheet done, the admins and members will review it. Now, only staff and salty vets can vote on your sheets. Only their votes will be counted, okay? You need at least 2 staff votes on your sheet, and ideally half the salty vets. Now, you can have more staff and, more salty vets or whatever, but that is ideally what you want to pass. Once that's done, you're good. You are made into an aspirant, and once you are an aspirant, you are ready to RP. Now, a lot of people sort of seem to be able to conjure the advanced nation sheet out of thin air like it's some sort of weird silent weapon that just roams around the server, which is very strange because we've locked it down. But a key thing to note is that your nation sheet is what we are going to look at, basic nation sheet. If you are writing your nation for the first time on Ancerios, we want that nation sheet to be filled out on the basic form. We don't want it to be super duper long. Yeah, we only want it to be about, 10 at maximum pages. You can go over that, obviously, but you've got to realise that the longer you make your sheet, the longer it's going to take for us to review it. Bear in mind, we all have lives, so it's quite difficult for us to, casually put time towards reviewing a 40-page sheet. Also, make sure that you focus on the things that are actually important, yeah? I don't give a fuck about the intricacies of your technology, yeah? If you say, my faction has railguns, I'm going to know exactly what that means, yeah? I'm not going to care about any calculations or super in-depth detail. At the same time, I'm going to look for your core of your nation, your source, yeah? What makes your nation your nation? And that's the key point. how clear is it that your nation acts in a certain way? Yeah? And does it have a strong core concept? And is it internally consistent and consistent with the Ancerios setting? If it passes all those, all cool. You'll get a green tick mark to say approved. You'll also probably get some feedback from us. Now, even if your sheet gets approved, if we give you feedback, ideally we want you to follow it, because it might be clarifying some things that work better within the setting, or it might be some things don't quite make sense, so you might want to edit them so that they work better, etc, etc. So always act on that feedback, but that's what we look for in sheets, yeah? Now, once you have got your aspirant role, you are free to RP. Now, we run intro RPs for all new people, ideally, yeah? This is usually done in batches. So there will be a new person RP, we'll get 4 to 5 new people, maybe a couple of like already long established members, and we'll put you into a new guy RP, okay? Now, you can join other RPs and create your own RPs during this period. And we will be watching those and your new intro RP quite closely, okay? Because we want to see how you write, how you respond to others in your posts, okay? Do you respond well to plot hooks? Can you give plot hooks in your posts that other players can work on? And so on and so forth. These are the things that we look for. If you can pass all of those and work really well within the confines of the intro RP or what you're given, fantastic. You are good to go, and you will get member in no time, okay? If your posts aren't quite up to standard, we'll just tell you. We'll just be like, look, you're not quite reading our posts right, or that was a bit out of place, maybe you could not do that, blah, 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 blah. We'll make it clear to you. We're not just going to be like, oh my god, you're bad band. We're going to try and work with you on it. The most common things that we find are stuff like tenses or certain formatting of posts. It's never really large things, and most people get over it pretty quickly, so, no issue on that front. You will probably be made a member before your intro RP ends. Bear in mind that RP takes quite a while on Ancerios, and especially intro RPs, because a lot of new players are still kind of getting to grips with the group, and they haven't quite, got the drive to be, replying every day. So bear with it. It's not a massive problem, but that's sort of a major thing. Now, for what an intro RP actually entails, it will most often than not be linked to a major plotline in some way. Either tangentially or majorly, because we like to get new players directly involved with the group. We don't like to be like, hey, here's this planet in bumfuck nowhere that has nothing to do with anything, go and do some stuff here. We like to do major stuff that ties into plot lines. So you will kind of be thrown into the thick of it most of the time as a new player. And we expect you to work with us. And we are basically offering you our plots and our story and going, have fun, run with it. We'll write this story together and have a good time. And that is honestly the best way that we do it and that we've seen. They could really be anything, to be honest. Some new guy RPs are more space battle orientated. Some new guy RPs are more character orientated. It depends what plot's going on. It could really be anything, as long as players go with the flow. It's all fine. Some examples: splitting hairs. A bunch of squads basically go in to stop a psionic army from destroying a bunch of psionic research. We've had Whispers on the Wind, which is more or less an entire native species goes missing, and a load of people turn up to investigate and find just the entire planet empty. And we've got Deep Recovery, which is a major faction's ship is sighted in the deeps of the Meridian in FTL space, and another major faction wants to recover the wreck and find out what exactly has gone on, because it doesn't all match up. So these are the sort of examples. Again, you can be anything. So you won't instantly be put into a new guy RP. As I said, they come in batches, so sometimes you have to wait a little bit. But again, you are free to start your own plot lines. If you want to do some diplomacy with other people, go for it. If you want to join another ongoing RP, go for it. If you want to start your own RP, go for it. That's something that we like. If you're new to a server and you're immediately trying to like start your own storylines, that's cool. We like that very much. That's something that we very much enjoy. It's quite rare, but it's a big positive. So you've been accepted into the group and sheet reviews and everything. Now here's a big one that a lot of people are sort of, even if they're a member, they still quite don't get, or a lot of people who are new to the server still don't understand fully. What is a colonial and what is a native? What's the differences? How does it impact your nation? So it's pretty simple. A native nation is a species that has evolved in the Ancerious Galaxy, has built up, developed, risen to prominence, and become a spacefaring empire. Yeah? If you're from Ancerious, you are tied into galactic history in some respects, as little or as much as you want, and you have to have a general reason, sort of impact-wise. Being a native nation, you kind of have to have a reason for either being in the background for all this time, or not really being massively involved in a load of the different plots, or if you were involved in those plots and you want to kind of retread and add some stuff, you're welcome to do so, but it has to sort of, you know, fit with the established lore. So it's good to work with the admins in that regard. It also means that you have access to stuff like, you know, most of the Galaxy Sonics that you can tie in. If you really want to go balls deep, you could have links to the Overmind lore or whatnot. It all depends on what you're trying to go for. But generally, if you're a native, you are born here, you developed here, and you are linked into the plotline. Okay? Colonials, on the other hand, are nations that have come from outside of the Ancerious universe. Ancerious has within it a specific device called the Bridge to Nowhere, which is an ancient wormhole generator. However, it's a bit fucked, to put it lightly, and because of such, it keeps opening wormholes to other dimensions, other universes, constantly, yeah? And other nations from these various universes and dimensions come through these wormholes into Ancerious and settle here, either as an outpost of a large empire or in their entirety. It doesn't have to be through these wormholes. How your nation gets to the Ancerious Galaxy is totally up to you. We've had entire nations transported accidentally through some experiment into Ancerious. We've had single planets be like accidentally teleported in an FTL drive. We've had entire star systems be purposefully transported here to escape some larger threat. It's all up to you how your nation gets here, but at the end of the day, all colonials come from a different dimension or universe, yeah? Obviously, the impacts of that on your nation are going to be quite prominent. You're not going to have any links to the existing lore. You're not going to have any links to the Overmind or previous events or whatnot. It kind of gives you a nice blank slate to work from. However, it also means that you've got to, you know, work in how did your nation get here, what were they like before, etc., etc. So those are the differences between sort of colonials and natives. Obviously, it also has an effect on the ongoing Ancerious War, but it's not super major. You don't have to get involved in such arcs if you don't want to, but that's pretty much the difference. And that's something that you need to decide when creating your nation pretty early on. You need to be like, right, am I going to be a colonial? Am I going to be a native? How is this going to affect my nation? How is this going to change, you know, my history, my culture, my government, exactly how my diplomacy works and how I interact with the other nations around me? So that's a pretty critical one that you want to go for. So, next bit. Now that you've sort of, you know, determined your nation, you put your sheet through to review, you've done your intro RP, and you finished it. and you maybe finished a couple of other RPs, and you're sort of sitting there like, all right, what do I do now? Well, that's a pretty big question, but you want to roleplay. That's why you're here. You're here to world build and you're here to roleplay. And Ancerious as a group and a community will give you whatever you put in. If you put in loads of effort, it will give you all that effort in return. A fantastic example of this is Corona. A lot of new people have thrown themselves into the Cronan theatre, balls deep, put in loads of writing effort and time, and they've now been like galactically recognised, and there's like massive stuff involving them going on, yeah? Once you finish your sort of intro RPs and you're not sure what to do, decide what you want Ancerious to do for you, okay? Do you want to make it a full-time hobby? Would you like to be a major player in the Ancerious Galaxy, yeah? Or would you like to just have this as a casual server where you write occasionally, maybe do 1 or 2 RPs, etc.? Don't want to put too much time and effort in, but you don't want it to consume too much, or for whatever reasons. It's completely up to you. I would say go out there and try to find roleplays. Ping people in the looking to RP chat and go, hey guys, anyone got any RPs available, or any free spots in RPs? Some RPs have sort of like ever-shifting players. Some, obviously, once they've started, that you can't join them, but you can always ask around if people want to start them, or you can always ask other people and saying like, yo, I kind of want to do some stuff. Do you want to do some stuff? And hash out an idea for a particular plotline or one-off roleplay to do with them, yeah? So, depending on how much you want to get out of the group or put in, can be how much you do that. You know, if you get 1 or 2 RPs, cool. Keep that sustained. Maybe do a journal every so often to sort of like update your stuff, do some news posts. All good. If you want to go absolutely balls deep and go, you know, super duper in depth, you want to try and get involved in some of the major arcs. You want to try and cement yourself. You want to have news posts. You want to do journals. You want to be interacting with people, yeah? And getting stuff going. Now, just because you have finished your RPs and you're sort of getting more RPs doesn't mean that you necessarily will become a big player in the group. I'm not promising everyone that you're going to be one of the major players, okay? Because obviously there's only so much room, if that makes sense, in the sort of like main plot line. But the key is to have your moments. And that's what we try to do here, in that everyone gets their big moments. Everyone gets key moments. If you fight and write for that big moment and you put the effort in, you're going to be rewarded for it. Again, Corona is a perfect example of this, yeah? And, you know, if you want to do this, go into the major plot lines. This kind of ties in with the, you know, how do I get involved with the major ongoing stories? You go into chats and you say, I want to get involved in 3AW. I want to get involved in Mortal Coil. I want to get involved in Corona. And I'll tell you right now how to get involved in all 3 of those. Corona, piece of piss. All you do is you go to the Corona Actions channels and you start typing up a post. You hit enter. Congratulations, you're now involved in Corona. That is a fully open RP. You can pretty much just join. There is no limit of players. You do not have to post every turn. Yeah? You can just have your forces turn up in Corona. You can start working with other players. You can start helping, because Jesus Christ, everyone's going to need the help very, very soon. However, for other roleplays such as Mortal Coil and 3AW, there's a more limited way that you can get involved with that. It's not like Corona. You can't just sort of throw yourself into the roleplay setting and jobs are good. For Mortal Coil, there's sort of set RPs that are opened up for those, okay? And it's more along the lines of, if you want to get involved, make it known to me, because I'm the main one sort of running all of the roleplays that are connected to Mortal Coil. And I will try and get you in to one of the role plays that's coming up, okay? I've got a few of them wrapping up at the moment. There's going to be more opening as we go, okay? So that's one of the ones that's kind of a bit tighter knit, but is much more rewarding. And yes, Mortal Coil is the sort of the whole arc involving the army of the Panopticon and everything to do with them. That's the ongoing sort of psionic stuff. So 3AW is kind of like a middle ground between Corona and Mortal Coil. Right now, in character, it's sort of at a ceasefire, okay? But that doesn't mean that you can't commit horrible genocides to each other in the war, yeah? Again, 3AW kind of works as the more you put into it, the more you get out. There is a galactic war. How involved you get is perfectly up to you. Do you want to join one of the galactic power blocks? Saga is pro-colonial. Kona is pro-native. Do you want to be a moderate of either? Do you want to be a hardliner of either? Do you want to be an extremist of either? It's all up to you. You can write up political intrigue of your faction getting involved. You can write skirmishes with NPC nations that you're having. Bear in mind that there doesn't have to be active role plays for 3AW for you to participate in 3AW. It's a galactic war. You can write up your own plots with NPCs and the like. We trust you to not go crazy bonkers and just start autoing stuff. 3AW is going to be kicking back off again, probably in the next 2 weeks, quite majorly. So we expect a sort of new wave of role plays and other things to go down. The Carnath and the Union theatres are going to be opening up for those. For the Union theatre, I'm tempted to do something like a bit of a cross between Corona and a traditional roleplay. Okay? So there may very well be a sort of like open roleplay sort of thing going on there with overarching posts, but we'll see. And so, yeah, it's pretty much a case of that's how you get involved with the major stories. You make it known to the players running those, or the admins, or whoever, yeah? For any other smaller plots, ping other players. Get involved, yeah? Come up with new plots, and this again sort of ties into, you know, how do you create your own stories and roleplay arcs? Well, it really does come to just generic stories, you know. Oh, I think it would be quite cool if we had, you know, a bit of a crazy horror thing on a particular freighter and a bunch of characters from different nations as mercenaries are going to turn up and investigate. Boom, there you go. You got a plot hook right there. Create the chat, do some GMing, go for it. That's a story. It doesn't have to be the best thing ever. You've just got to enjoy it, and the rest of you have got to enjoy it, who are also participating, yeah? Have internal story arcs where maybe you're having government issues, or economic issues, or political issues, or any sort of, like, small-scale regional disputes between other nations. Again, makes fantastic plot lines. Again, you can get other players involved who are around the same area. I could easily provide later on a huge list of roleplay plot hooks, yeah, that you could just take and just sort of work on. And all you can do is just throw one of these ideas into the chats and just let other players also give their ideas. When you've solidified and finalised something, ask the admins to make a chat. We'll make the chat for you. You can ping everyone and get it all going, yeah? Don't be afraid to run your own role plays. I know it seems daunting, and you're like, oh shit, that's a lot of like pressure and that, you know. Don't be off-put. It's quite rewarding. Yes, it can be stressful. Yes, sometimes you can be like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not sure where to take this. But work with your players if you're going to do something like that. Because if you're not sure, or people are like, I'm not sure about this, communicate. Yeah? You're not going to look like an idiot if you're GMing an RP for people and you're like, hey guys, this is my first time GMing, where do you think we should take the plot with this? And the player's like, well actually I think we should go like this because it could be pretty cool. And then you're like, okay cool, let's do it. You know, things like that work, okay? And it doesn't matter how like small scale or weird the RP like premise seems, you'll probably find people on the server who are more than happy to pick up another RP because it's just more writing that they can do and just having fun, yeah? Don't be afraid as well to do your own small arcs, okay? Bear in mind, Ancerious is pretty freeform, and us admins are completely fine with people using, like, NPCs from the unaligned list and all these different concepts and stuff to create plot lines for players to use. That was the whole point that they were made, okay? So if you come to us and you're like, hey guys, I kind of have this like premise for a small arc, which may be like 3 to 4 different RPs in this region where there's like a little fight and, you know, people are having a bit of like border disputes and we've got to back different sides and it's kind of part of 3AW. But obviously I don't want mega fleets to get involved, but it's going to be a small thing. We're going to turn around and say, like, fucking go for it, dude. Have fun. Like, if you need any help, just ask us, okay? And even if there's an unaligned on the list that, you know, there's no unaligned on the list, sorry, that, you know, you're like, oh, I don't like any of these, just create your own. There's free cells there. You can keep on writing the Excel sheet. Maybe one day we'll get to 2,000 for crazy stuff, you know? So don't be afraid to get going on smaller arcs and stuff. Don't be afraid to brainstorm as well in Gen Devs or RP discussion. It's there and open for you. You make what you will of it, okay? If you don't want to run your own RPs, again, because Ank's a sort of side thing and you don't want to get too involved, completely fine. If you want to go for it, go for it. Ping any of the admins. We'll happily help you sort of plan around lore stuff or whatnot. Even if you're writing and GMing a plot line and you're like, oh, actually I want to add this cool thing that can tie into the Ankh, like big lore, but I'm not kind of sure, I don't know if I have permission to do so, but I don't want to reveal it, just ping one of the admins and ask the staff and be like, hey, can I DM you a question about something? It's like for an RP. Just ask us in DMs, we'll relay it to the rest of the staff, and you'll get an answer, and we can work with you on it. Because at the end of the day, we want to see really cool plot lines from all of you as well, yeah? So, go bananas on that front. So, you know, you're running your own RPs, you're doing all this stuff, you're accepted, you're a member, you know, you officially have crippling autism. What do you do now? You know, how do you get the most out of the Ancerious experience? Well, basically you eat both barrels of a sawn-off shotgun, and that's it. That's how you win the group. But more seriously, to get the most out of Ankh, I say, is not just the writing side of it. So far, we've talked a lot about the writing side. You know, how to get involved in major plot lines, how to ask and run your own RPs, how to sort of, you know, get more involved in this aspect. But to get the most out of the group, you have to be a member of the community, okay? It doesn't matter how many role plays you're in character, if you're not interacting in all the chats out of character, even if it's just occasionally, nobody's really going to know who you are or what you're like, okay? I'm not saying that, you know, you have to participate in main chat every day. Absolutely fucking not. Jesus Christ, not even I do that. But just get to know people, create friends, have a laugh, do some memeing, you know. Building up camaraderie and good friendship with people is an absolutely piss easy way to find good RP members, okay? If you're unsure on how to run a plot line, but you've got 5 friends that you really like talking to in main chat, ping them. See if they'll get involved and help you. Yeah? Easy done. Stuff like that is just like one of the best ways of how to get really involved. And if you're active on the server and everyone knows your name, well, of course you're going to be really prominent. Of course you're going to easily get up to be one of the sort of like, I guess, big players, you know, invert commas. And do stuff like do some gaming with people or make some memes, yeah? People enjoy that sort of shit. But also maybe try and get involved in some art. I know we're quite an artist-heavy community. And, you know, not everyone creates art. Don't worry about that. If you really don't want to, don't have to. But we are willing to teach you. And you'd be surprised when I say that many of our members, in fact the vast majority of our members, were once not artists, or were very bad at artists. And, you know, we've helped them become pretty good. And we're willing to help everyone who wants to as well. And we love seeing art, yeah? Even if it's not great, if it's art of your own nation, we love it, okay? And if you are being active in the RP, in the OOC server, and you're doing cool shit in role plays, people are going to draw your shit for you. Just because they like it. Yeah? But even if you're just doing basic drawing, even if it's not good, you don't have to be a perfectionist. We'll show you how to improve. We'll give you references. We'll give you links, yeah? So if you want to get the most out of Ankh, you want to be involved in everything, okay? That's how you get the most out of it. Now, of course, you can focus on specific things and really, really get the best out of them. But to get the whole experience, you've got to open yourself up to sort of, you know, the whole community, okay? And we'll just help you along. Again, if you're unsure, if you're anxious, if you're like, Jesus Christ, the server's so big, there's so much going on, there's so much lore, like blah, 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 what the hell am I going to do? Just ask. Even if stuff like the lore Bible is too long, just be like, hey guys, can I have like a super TLDR, like quick little thing about how the Scion field works? Or like, hey guys, what's Lost Star real quick or whatnot? And people will probably tell you to read the lore Bible, but just be like, I don't quite have time, but I'd like to know, you know, sort of thing. And, you know, everyone won't have a problem, okay? If you explain and communicate at the end of the day, you'll have no problems in Ankh. If you can't communicate, God help you in life and in Ancerious. So, with that out of the way, people who have any general questions for like getting started or how to approach certain stuff, basically for the topics that I've talked about, yeah, ask away in the chat and I'll answer them here, okay, in text. Or I quickly have a drink. Oh, it's better. What's a good method for planning out RPs? So we've technically already done a discussion on this, on how to GM, but I'll go over a very TLDR version. The best way to plan out roleplays is to have your core concept, yeah? This is the premise of the RP. Bunch of dudes going into a drifting space, Hulk, whatever. There's crazy shit inside. It's going to be a horror RP. Cool. There's your premise. Now, plan out major sort of scenarios or events that you want to have in that RP. Like, I don't know, maybe they encounter a big baddie in the cargo bay, or maybe they encounter a survivor in the on the bridge, and they have to get stuff out of the computer core and like stuff like that. Have those bits planned, okay? But plan it loosely. Everything else, freeform it. Respond to your players. Okay? Take what they write, respond to them. Give them stuff to work with. Always ensure that as a GM, but not just as a GM, as a player, to include in your roleplay posts little plot hooks that other players can pick up on. Whether that be your character acting in a certain way in response to a certain situation, or providing somebody with a link in to their post so they can do an action. Yeah? Stuff like that, everyone loves. The more plot hooks that you give your players or other players in the RP, the better that they can make their posts and the better that the GM can make their reply. Okay? So have your main sections planned, completely improv everything else. This means that whatever happens, players can do what they want to do without feeling railroaded. You know, you're not like, oh, well, they're going to go here and then they're going to do that and then they're going to do this. Because if the players do something completely unexpected, you're going to be like, oh shit, my entire plan's out the window. So play loose, keep your key things planned, and give plot hooks. That's my advice for planning out RPs. Second question, What are some of the exemplary plot hooks you've seen from other players? Well, that's a tough one, really. There was one which was the exploration of a world ship that was really, really well done on an intro to the group. We've had one with a shadow war between two major plat powers. That was really fun to do. I'm trying to think of ones that are not mine. Everything I've done, obviously, super based, love it. So some of the other ones, Midnight on the Tar, probably one of my favourite. Basically, a bunch of diplomatic embassies get cut off in a city, and all the embassy staff and that have to survive in riots and such. That was amazing. Sort of, my favourite plot hooks are stuff that you don't typically see, yeah? And sort of break the mould a little bit. That's my favourite. So, when it comes to force limited RP plots, what's the best way to say, hey, I don't want 10 million ships at my front door, and ensure something like that does not happen? The best way to do that is to say flatly in the OOC chat, I don't want 10 million ships in this RP. Say to people, this RP is limited to 4 ships maximum, small vessels, corvettes, etc. Boom. Everyone is expected to adhere to that. If they don't, we call them a bitch out of character and tell them to fuck off. That's how that works. It is literally as simple as that, and as quick as that. There is a pretty strict social sort of like contract in Ankh and how we're expected to roleplay. If people say out of character that they don't want something to happen in character, that thing does not happen. Flat out, end of story. If a GM is planning and doing a roleplay, for example, I want to do a character roleplay, and the premise is you've got to locate this specific artifact that was taken from somebody, okay? And you're all playing a bunch of mercenaries. Now, if somebody turns up to that with an entity who is like, by the way, I can manipulate the laws of physics and completely, like, crush an entire space station with my hands, I'm going to tell you to eat shit, because that doesn't really have an actual bearing on the roleplay. Like, what's that going to contribute to the story? It's just going to make everything a complete piss take. So everyone is expected to, you know, actually have some brain cells when they roleplay in that regard. And any problems out of character that's caused by such, bring it up to the admins. Or just bring it up to the person. You can always tell them, like, hey, you know, this RP's not really planned for that. Do you mind not? And they'll usually be like, okay, yep, no problem. So be upfront about it. If they're still an asshole, you're probably not in Ancerious, you're probably somewhere else, but, you know, just get the admins involved. So, what's really expected out of new faction sheets? What does the vetting process consider, and what's something that is considered attractive or disqualifying? So, what's expected out of new faction sheets? They've got a powerful core concept. Okay, I can see that you are, for example, going for a general confederation of human species that are working together for a greater cause. Boom. There's your core concept, okay? I want to see source. What makes your human confederation of different species working together for a greater cause different to these other 3 that are also using the same core? What makes them them? What makes them unique, yeah? What makes them stand out from the others, okay? Next, I want to see how well you have put across your concept. If it takes me half of your nation sheet to work out what your core concept is, it's not really very good. I want to know what they are very quickly, yeah? I want to be like, how easily have you got across the information, your core and the source of your nation, in your nation sheet? Because if I finish that nation sheet and I have no fucking idea what I just read, then I'm obviously not going to vote for it, yeah? And the last one is just general consistency, yeah? Is your faction sheet consistent with the Ancerious setting? Do they fit in here, yeah? Does your technology fit in here? Does your society fit in here? Does your post-scarcity economic system fit in here? Spoilers, it doesn't. You know, I look for how consistent your sheet is, and we work from there, okay? Again, if you don't have all of those sort of 100%, that's fine. we'll just give you advice on what to change. Now, particular things that's considered attractive or disqualifying. Particularly attractive nation sheet stuff to me is nice formatting. Also, very clear and concise. Below 10 pages, because I can actually read it in an afternoon without killing myself. And really sort of attractive stuff is crazy concepts, stuff you don't normally see, yeah? Like, this kind of links into disqualifying stuff, but an authoritarian dictatorship with strong individual liberties where everyone loves the God Emperor who is super powerful and can do no wrong, and they're super militaristic, but they also have a super good economy and everything, or, you know what not, I'm just gonna tell you that it's shit and it's been overdone. You know, you're going to have to do really fucking well on that one to get me to pass it. Another disqualifying factor is somebody turning up and saying, oh, I've got a post-scarcity economy. Instant no. That doesn't exist in Ancerios. Go home or change it. What other disqualifying stuff? Any sort of NSFW stuff on their species sheet. So like, oh, well, this is exactly how they have sex and make babies. Absolutely not. Fuck off. Not interested. Any sort of fetish stuff, when the faction is clearly influenced from the writer's fetish, absolutely not. Get that shit out of here, thank you. So yeah, that's sort of how I'd approach that. So, next question. What is the best way for interacting with core or staff-controlled entities? So say you want to do something with the Old Invaders or the Army of the Panopticon, or something like the Golden Expanse, or a Trade X or Phasic Waste Expedition. Something not necessarily controlled by just the one player. So I guess in scenarios like that, in example of the Army of the Panopticon, Mortal Coil RPs are genuinely how you want to interact. Which is run by me. If you want to do separate stuff, I'm not going to do individual RPs with you, but I'm more than happy to work with you on you potentially writing a journal or doing a news post as a result of something that happens with that faction. Old Invaders are a lot more open. You can kind of just do stuff with them, especially in Corona or whatnot, quite openly. Stuff like Golden Expanse or Trade X, etc. expeditions, again, if you get multiple players together who are interested, I or other people may be willing to do a roleplay about that, yeah, and actually turn it into a roleplay. Otherwise, again, I'm willing, or people are going to be willing to work with you on a journal or a news post in regard to that, yeah? So that's how you sort of interact with those in a way that isn't just, you know, quite overwhelming. Okay, additionally, how do you plan out big arcs, aka arcs with 4 or 5 RPs with lots of implications? Really not so different than the way that I described the RP, but instead of it doing it as in, oh, then we're going to have these specific instances happen in role plays, you want to have, oh, I want this to be the major event that happens in this specific roleplay, and that's going to lead into this specific roleplay, and then this happens, and then that leads into this specific roleplay. But while you want to have those as sort of fixed events, you want to keep the content and what happens generally open and freeform, because that means if the players do something different, you can have additional implications that you never thought about that then link on to the rest of the big arc. Yeah? Now, for stuff like Mortal Coil, I've written down in a Google Doc a load of notes, okay, that I plan to use for later. However, most of the time, because I'm Gigabrain, I just keep everything in my head. But for other people, it's very good to just write things down on a Google Doc, even if it's just to note shit, yeah? That's how I approach big stuff. So, somebody says, assuming that I wanted to do an RP involving a major important location, so any of the ones marked on the map, especially things that might up making some changes to them, is there any way that I'd get specific permission for that or something? So, again, this kind of ties into the whole thing of like, hey, if I want to do an expedition into the Golden Expanse or the Trade X or whatever. So, interactions with major important locations, typically you want to ping a member of staff and be like, hey, I want to do X thing here, yeah? Now, if it's something minor, you could probably do a news post about it, okay? If it's something major, again, look around for other players who might be interested in doing something. Maybe somebody wants to go and do a proper expedition into the Tradex. I don't recommend it, but you could definitely do so, and you can get several other players together. Maybe you can do we could get an RP going with that, etc. If not, it depends. Generally, yes, if you want to do something with a major location, you want to have permission from the staff, who will then help guide you on like how to do the effects and whatnot without, fucking anything up or doing crazy shit. So hopefully that that puts that up. So, any other questions? Any others at all? Also, holy shit, yeah, there are a lot of people on this call right now. What's the best way to go about a civil war? Do you have to submit sheets for each of the internal warring factions or whatnot? So, civil wars are something that I find is quite overdone in a way that people tend to gloss over them quite a bit, okay? Civil wars are not a minor thing in a nation, okay? They don't just happen overnight. They build up through a lot of internal pressures that come to the fore over a long period of time, yeah? If you want to do a civil war, yeah, don't submit sheets for all the different sides. You don't need to do that, okay? What you need to do is over a long period of time in character writing through either role plays or news posts or journals, yeah, establish the different sides, establish the ideological differences, establish characters that are going to be the mouthpieces and the point of views for which the readers are going to experience what the problems of your nation are. Why are people at each other's throats? Why is there such civil discontent? Why is the government failing? Why is the military aren't taking a particular stance? Why are these things happening? What's going to be the flame point? What's going to kick it all off? What's going to be the outcome? Okay? Do you want to get other players involved? If yes, how's that going to affect the outcome, etc.? So, no, you don't need to make sheets, but yes, we want you to really kind of flesh it out and do it properly. Yeah, we don't want it to just be like, by the way, the establishment of like Zozark 4 has had a civil war today and 50 billion people died, but there's a new government now and everything's hunky-dory. That sort of thing doesn't happen, okay? So, don't do that. So, when creating a faction, how can you figure out the purpose or goal for it? So there's two ways of going about this. Some people create their nations with a goal pre-established. They want to see it become a big player in the galaxy, or they want to see it take a particularly major role in a story arc. Other people kind of just create a arc and then just go like, okay, I've got my nation, I don't really know what to do with it. Well, see in the general scope of Ancerios what's being done and what isn't. Yeah? For example, Sakura here is going for a pacifist side of things, and she's trying to make an actual neutral political and legal bloc that's going to focus on, actually creating a sort of, I guess, Bill of Human Rights for the whole of the galaxy's sentience and the Geneva Convention, that sort of thing. That hasn't been done before, but that's a really cool niche that you could build your nation and its roleplay towards goal-wise, yeah? If you don't want to, focus on something that hasn't really been done, just baby steps. Focus on goals or purposes that are just the short term. I want my nation to be involved in a war. There you go, small goal. But you can then move towards that by role-playing with other people or getting involved in something like 3AW. And moving towards that from a writing standpoint. Then once you've reached that, okay, I'm in a war. Well, what's my purpose now for my nation? Well, they're going to try and win it, or they're going to try and get out of it, or they're going to try and do something, you know. So then you then move on to the next goal. And you kind of go, that's the sort of organic approach to it. You react to things and go for goals, sort of as your nation would, naturally, yeah? So that's how I would go, sort of approach something like that. How does one go about working with the unique materials here? What are things to consider when using them? So the unique materials are obviously all listed. You are free to use them. If you are unsure on how to use them, please ping staff or established members. They will tell you. They will explain things to you. It's pretty simple. Nobody has a complete monopoly on specific materials. Materials cost a lot of money in character. And it's not just going to be a case of, oh, I like Nightstone. Nightstone is an amazing armour. All my ships are now armoured with Super Nightstone. That's not quite how it works, yeah? So be understanding of the setting, ask people how to use them, but don't be afraid to use them. They are there as a resource. Feel free to incorporate them. And don't be afraid to experiment with them to create new materials. Yeah? There's plenty of unique ways that things have been done like that before. And all you have to do is ask. And people will help you create them. Yeah? So, something I struggle with is that I have an idea for a magic or psionic system, but I don't know whether I have to tie it into the current one or be forced to create a new one. Okay, so with the magic system, you could tie it into the existing one piss easily. All it has to do is work with ley lines and mana. Other than that, you could do whatever the hell you want. That's the point of magic in Ancerios. It's supposed to be an open plane system that people can approach and just plug and play their systems. Psionics is a lot harder. There's only one way to do psionics in Ancerios, and that is through mandalas and, you know, the psion field, okay? So with psionics, yes, you have to abide by the established psionic law here. Magic, you don't. You just have to focus on, you know, okay, I integrate these things, and once that's done, you know, your imagination is your playground, effectively. So, if you've got your own sort of system and you want to do funky stuff, go with magic. If you want to do funky stuff, but tie it into the established, sort of like, setting, go psionics. That's my sort of TLDR, yeah? So, could you roleplay with yourself to explore some interesting scenarios and give insights to your nation? Also, would you do that in a Discord channel, or would you have to write that in a doc? So, I actually realised that I haven't explained journals, so I will quickly do that now. We call any self-RP, or writing with yourself, or just writing stories on your own, a journal, okay? What you do is you just go to a Google Doc, and you write a story piece. Once that is done, you post it on the forums, okay? That goes for any RP that's finished as well. Once an RP is finished, you could create an account on the forums that we have. You go to the current era, which is the Martyrs era, and you post it up. You put a tag on it, so like if it's a battle RP, character RP, exploration, etc., give it the name, copy and paste, boom. Posted, done. That's archived, yeah? You could do that for journals. Journals and self-writing is the best way that you can do integrated, you know, storylines for yourself that doesn't include other players, okay? And allows you to flesh things out that you wouldn't normally really be able to do on a one-on-one or one-on-many RP situation. So, yeah, it's pretty much a case of journals are what we call self-writing, or anything that gets posted to the journal. Not journal, sorry, the forum. So, yes, you can do self-writing, and we very much encourage it, because it's cool to see. It shows that you're putting effort in outside of the role-playing with other players side of things. So, you know, you're more than willing to. Any other questions? Somebody asked, why is it called the Martyrs era? Because a lot of people are going to be martyred by the end of it. Spoilers, but not spoilers. So yes, I definitely recommend doing self-writing. So, in terms of roleplay, what is going on in terms of the larger economic happenings? Shit's fucked. There you go. That's the TLDR for beginners. Shit's fucked. Basically, the galactic economy has crashed, and the war is making things much worse. So everything costs shit tons of money, such as FTL fuel. So doing anything costs exuberant amounts of money. Now, obviously, that's not represented in terms of like, oh, well, you can't participate in this RP because you don't have enough FTL fuel. We don't do it like that. We RP it with, like, mentions. So you mention it in your posts, like, you know, your crew complaining that you don't quite have enough fuel or whatever. Shit like that helps add that to the actual setting without having any of the mechanical downsides, okay? We never roleplay economics as a set thing. We do it as a nice overarching background piece, okay, that influences things with the story. So, how are battles done? Are they predetermined? Is victory based upon your actual strategic knowledge and such? Is it like a tabletop strategy with maps and battles? It could be all of the above. More or less, how battles are done is it depends. It depends who you're fighting with. If you are with another player and you both agree that you want the battle to have a predetermined outcome, cool. Done. It has a predetermined outcome. We're not going to dispute it. If it doesn't have a predetermined outcome, then it's down to you two to roleplay and acknowledge who is the winner. Yes, it can come down to actual strategic knowledge, but usually it comes down to flavour of posts, yeah? How cool is stuff happening? What funky stuff that you're doing? You know, like, logical, I guess, results of what happens in roleplay. Again, remember, Ancerious is a setting where story comes first. So even if somebody loses a battle, it should still give them many plot hooks and story hooks with which to then pursue roleplay with, yeah? They've lost the battle. How is that going to affect them politically? You know, how is that going to affect the relationship between the two sides fighting? Stuff like that, yeah? Sometimes we do use actual maps. For example, Corona or Adelshaven or Line in the Sand, etc. Just to help players visualise what the battlefield is like, where units are. Especially when you have like 15 players in a roleplay and they're throwing around divisions worth of ground units, you're going to need to know who is who and where is what, because otherwise you're going to have no fucking idea what the hell's going on. So, yeah, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But battles are pretty much just a case of right for coolness, right for story, and whoever wins will generally end up being sort of a logical decider, or players will get to the point where they decide, like, yeah, you've won this, etc. So, if you want to have an unaligned, have some connections to your faction, how would that be done? Naturally, not just a mini faction, but like fought with them in the past, or were a colony settled by a sleeper ship, etc. You just write it. It's that easy. You just add another unaligned that has the connections. Obviously, you don't want to like create 30 unaligned that are all surrounding your nation, that are all, you know, yeah, like worshipping you or whatnot and want to fight for you. But yes, you can just create unaligned that have connections to you. That's completely fine. And it's logical as well. It makes sense for the setting. So, if submitting a world build with multiple nations or groups with a major focus on just one, or would you want to submit the others? So, if you are creating a nation that is, for example, a confederation of lots of different states, yeah, you want to focus on the overall state, not like multiple instances of each section for all the different nations, okay? Just because it's much easier for us to overview, and then you can write little bits of lore about all the different things. But we want to know how your faction interacts as a whole, rather than how all 6 of your integral nations interact with each other and the outside in completely different ways. Because then your sheet goes from like 8 pages to 80 pages really fucking quickly. So you want to like be careful of that. We want to look at the overview, not the tiny detail. Again, the advanced sheet does exist, but we only want people to submit the advanced nation sheet once their basic nation sheet has been approved, they're already members, and their advanced nation sheet can then just be fleshing out everything that they'd already written, and then we don't need to approve it because it's already good, yeah? Yeah, exactly. So, for example, you know, if you take the Earth united by the UN, but it still has all the countries, you wouldn't submit every nation on Earth. You'd just submit the UN. So, for example, Natar. Natar, as a planet, you know, you've got the ASM, which is the governing body, and then you've got all the different nations underneath it. But their nation sheet focuses on the ASM because that is the governing body. That is the overview. Okay. So, when you are creating your nation with your what are your first steps? Like, what would you know how you want to create? So, your first steps as a nation should be trying to engage in some diplomacy with other factions, getting involved in some other role plays, and generally getting yourself out there on the galactic scene, whether that be creating some diplomatic ties, some economic deals, etc. That's the kind of like first things that you want to go to, and then depending on where those role plays that you're in take you, you could find yourself in more, let's just say, intertwined territory with other plots that are ongoing, and then it kind of leapfrogs from there, okay? So if you want to start off as a native that is not in contact with the rest of the galaxy, how would you do that? Very simple. Pretty much, you have your nation probably be on the, I guess, less populated side of the galaxy, and you just have it so that they evolved in kind of isolation. They've only just discovered FTL flight, and they're now sort of coming to the fore on the galactic scene. It is that simple. That's fine. That's how you would pretty much come to that point. So yeah. Sorry, what's that? How would you know what you want to create? Sorry, when you are creating your nation, what are your first steps? Like, how would you know what you want to create? Well, you want to create infrastructure, you want to create better FTL capabilities, you want to create a better economy, a better diplomatic standing. Yeah. Pretty much what I said, just in a different context. Any other questions? Oh, wait, you mean, so if you are creating your nation, how do you know what you want to create? Get inspired. Watch some movies. Read some books. Just take inspiration from anything and go, oh, that looks cool. Maybe I could build something off of that. And just go from there, yeah? Just make sure that it has a good core, a solid foundation, and isn't like a complete and total meme, and you'll be fine. So, anything else? How long is the submission process usually? Anywhere from a few days to a few months, depending on how much free time the admins have to actually review your sheets, or the mental willpower. Bear in mind that, like, some days we get together and we can just review it in record time. Other times we look at the form submissions channel and immediately decide to slit our own wrists. But now that I'm going to be off soon, I'm going to try and poke some people into getting quite a lot of stuff approved. Yeah, just please don't harass us about, like, getting your stuff checked, because again, you know, we're doing a lot here. This is a volunteer hobby. Like, you know, we're not here as paid actors, unless you want to pay me, in which case I'll review your sheets immediately. But you know, it's £20 a page. So, if there's no more questions, we will leave it there for tonight. So, thank you very much for coming, and I will catch you again next time.